Just loved it. It was too good not to throw in. So a bit of a throw.
That's so cool. And yeah, just I need to check out No Wet Fish. I really do, because it sounds like there's some amazing stuff in there.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and aBible. Today's day 49, and we're going to be covering numbers 16 and 17.
In number 16, Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and the leaders rebel against Moses, are destroyed by God. Israel complains, and 14,000 men die from a plague. In number 17, 12 rods, one for each tribe, are brought to the tabernacle. Aaron's rod is the only one that blossoms, signifying the Levites' role in ministry.
Nice.
Sweet as. All right.
It looks like you got more to chat about in general today, so why don't you kick us off?
Sounds good. So the fact that the men rose up against Moses, and 250 of the Israelite leaders, well-known community leaders, who had been appointed members of the council, all go against what God's will is. It just shows how men always find a way to fight, even when there's literally God telling you what to do. There's still going to be these conflicts, and that kind of again just helps to explain the justification of why factions of the Israelite leaders had to be destroyed, and then the plague and all that stuff. Like you said, at some point, especially in this early forming of Israel, God just has to put his foot down.
Very true.
I thought this was really intimidating as well. Number 16:21. God saying, separate yourselves from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's God being like, all right, back up, mate.
Yeah.
This is going to go down. And I think for me, I don't know, you may add something else into that as well, but I think so much of that, what I take from that is when you see stuff happening that isn't right, and it's so easy to discern the sort of the big things. Obviously, both of us grew up in secular schools, and most people do, and even the Christian schools tend to have a lot of wrong-uns in them anyway. But obviously, we're all wrong-uns, just whatever. But just distance yourself. If you can see it's not edifying, if you can see it's not wise from a secular standpoint, let alone a biblical one and a sort of Christian standpoint, but just separate yourself, get as far away from that as you can, because realistically, it's not going to do well for you long term. And again, looking back from an adult's point of view, it's easy to say it when you're in the moment and everyone's doing it and whatever, sure. But you know what? That's where you need to really put your focus on God and what your actual eternal aim is in this life. And just stay away from the people and the things that are going to lead down a dark path, right?
Oh, absolutely, man. And actually, it's interesting you say that, because the next thing I was going to say is again from God. He says, he warns the assembly, move back from the tents of these wicked men, do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of all their sins. Number 16:26.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what you said. You've said this before about Pastor Jeff, right, at your church, just show me your friends and I'll show you your future type vibe, right? And the idea that they would be swept away because of the sins of these other men and so on. It's kind of reminds me as well of why the Israelites wanted to intermarry with the Midianites and so on, right?
Yeah.
Like when it talks about that, it's like you're gonna be dragged down.
Yeah.
So yeah, couldn't agree more.
And I was actually reading in the Africa Bible just a little while back, and it was saying there was a Malawi proverb, and basically it says, a dog is always a dog. Even if you put a dog's food on your table, it will still drag it onto the floor and eat from the floor, because that's just what it knows, and it just goes back to what it knows. And we're so like that with our sin. We know that there is something better. We know we're called to our higher standard, but it's just so easy for us to just go back and cling on to the sins that we enjoy, right? And I think it was C.S. Lewis, I can't remember what book it was now, but effectively referencing that he believes that hell is going to be like, just you get everything you could ever want, but it's all secular, it's all materialistic, and actually what you want is bigger, more, better, but actually that takes you further away from God, and hell is separation from God. And just this whole concept of like, do you want your favorite sin or do you want God? you can't have both. And that's kind of how he explained hell, which I thought was just sort of quite interesting, really.
Yeah, very,
Yeah.
very interesting. I don't know if it is from here. I just quickly Googled it. Possibly the problem of pain. The gates of hell are locked from the inside. It might be an extension of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I
that's really cool.
literally just realized now I was supposed to bring something across from yesterday as well. And so I'll just throw
Yes,
that
you are.
now.
Yeah.
Basically, it was where it was saying in Numbers 15 about the tassels on the garments, and it's supposed to be like a visual reminder of the 10 Commandments, really. And I think visual reminders are great. Post-it notes, your screensaver on your phone, your desktop background, all those kind of things that you can see on a regular basis just to encourage and support and remind you. But what I liked is it's also sort of in Jewish sort of tradition, rabbis would have cloaks with tassels on the bottoms of them, and their followers would actually hold on to the tassels of their garments, just to sort of symbolize I'm following this person. It's a physical act of doing it. And I was listening to the podcast by Nathan Senior, which I've referenced a few times, called No Wet Fish. And he was saying that I think the original translation of tassel was wings. And so actually they would be called and considered wings on their garments. And actually, when you consider Jesus as a rabbi at the time, would have been wearing one of these garments with these wings. But then in the Bible, it talks about, shading and being sheltered under his wings, and he carries us on his wings. And actually it's by holding onto his wings that he enables us to fly, which is a bit of a cheesy analogy at the end there, but just loved it. It was too good not to throw in. So a bit of a throw.
That's so cool. And yeah, just I need to check out No Wet Fish. I really do, because it sounds like there's some amazing stuff in there. And, I've been following the social media. It's great. So the next thing I said was, okay, yeah, there are just these moments in the Bible, like, the talking donkey and so on, that you're just like, what? I find this one to be a slightly less insanely mind-blowing miracle, but still pretty big. As soon as he finished saying all this, warning the men basically, get back, I'm about to end them. The ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. So that's Numbers 16, 31 and 32. Just the earth literally opens up and swallows a large quantity, like hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Carry on, nothing to see here.
Seriously, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? And again, it's one of those, could this be considered, it's just an earthquake, it's just a natural disaster? But actually, no, this was very specific as to who it swallowed up at that time. And then what I love is obviously God just sort of goes into stand back, boys, this is going to get messy mode. And again, Moses comes out and he's just begging and pleading for the lives of the Israelites. And what I take from that is just the importance of having someone fighting your corner, because we can screw up, and we do screw up, but actually having someone that can come alongside you and encourage you and support you, having someone that can call you out on some of your crap and actually rebuke you for some of the stuff you're doing wrong, and someone that can actually help dig you out of trouble when you get into it. I remember my uncle was a police officer, and I had to call him a couple of times when I had little brushes, nothing too serious, just to find out where I was standing with a couple of things. Having someone that you can call on the inside, like having someone that will fight your corner for you, is a really valuable thing.
Absolutely it is. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I have like a bit of a conspiracy theory sort of thought about this as well, because I think some people might be like, well, how comes there's talking donkeys and earth swallowing people up in the Old Testament and miracles in the New Testament, and yet you do see miracles, of course, today, but you don't see hundreds of people swallowed up in the ground, right?
Yeah.
I honestly think it's partly to do with the fact that God has allowed us this far into technology, social media, cameras, all that stuff, and everyone would just immediately believe. There'd be no option but to believe if something like that happened today, right?
Funny you say that. I have the same thing. I've mentioned that a few times. It has to be faith, belief in things unseen. If it's broadcast over social media, then it's far less faith at that point.
Yeah, it's not faith. It's not free will, really. So we've got to talk about Aaron's rod.
Well, that's just another cheeky little miracle at the end there, isn't it? This single staff that gets set apart to be like, boom, flowers, absolutely banging. So maybe we'll talk more about that tomorrow. We'll see. But for the time being, feel free to join us on social media on Insta at 2 Brits and a Bible.
And please consider liking and subscribing to help spread the word of God.